Ever wonder about life's mysteries and how what we may not be aware of could be affecting the outcomes of we here on earth? With permission from Dr. Paul Leon Masters, founder of the University of Sedona, I'd like to share with you one of his mystical insights. Dr. Masters' mystical insights are based on over 50 years of consciousness research with thousands of his students. Today's subject's based on his conclusions after half a century of research. The subject is on spiritual power, illusions, and reality. Healing, magic, mind over matter, invoking the gods or God, all are, have been, and will be a part of the human species' quest to have spiritual power work for themselves or others. Since the beginning of recorded time on this physical earth plane of existence, human beings have reached for a higher spiritual power to work on their behalf or for others. However, many have noticed that sometimes a higher power seems to work and other times it does not. Is one person using the right prayer or incantation while another is not? Why does invoking spiritual power seem so inconsistent in the hands of humankind? Why is it that not all prayers are answered for help, healing, prosperity, love, or other human needs and desires? Are some prayers chosen or favored while others are not? Is it a matter of good or bad karma, the wrong religion, or the wrong slant on God or spirituality? Candidly, no one has any extra or special spiritual power going for them, despite what they might imagine from their false sense of personal ego identity. Spiritual power that is active in one's life is available only when the personal ego is not trying to influence it. In human reality, all may seem possible in regards to spiritual power as harnessed or brought about through many diverse forms of spiritual practice. Now, it's true that many prayers or other spiritual practices seem to be answered, but they only seem to be answered. Of course, it is recognized that these words do not meet with favorable response from those who believe that humans have the personal ego means to bring about some form of divine interventional power. Certainly, it will seem that in the lives of many, God or some other spiritual power has answered them. And yes, it seems that way. In reality, human consciousness, as it is currently awakened collectively in the mass of humanity, is not capable of influencing spiritual power. If it were, the entirety of the universe would be one gigantic cosmic mess. One explosion after another as human beings in their present states of consciousness attempted to influence and find balance within the energy forces of nature on a universal scale. Place real spiritual power in the hands of a fool. That is one with limited perception of what really is at work on a universal scale, and chaos would ensue. Those who are at a deep level of spiritual slumber, though they seem awake, may be led to believe that even if they themselves can't invoke spiritual power, there are those who can. And certainly there are those who are lined up and ready to fulfill the fantasy, either for their own personal good or in some way to satisfy their own self-delusions or spiritual power at their disposal. Albert Schweitzer once made this comment about healing in the practice of medicine. The role of the physician is to amuse the patient long enough so as to allow nature time to do the actual healing. Now, certainly, most metaphysically, mystically, or esoterically inclined people would agree with Schweitzer's statement suggesting that ultimately it is nature that does the bottom line healing. The very same people could apply the principle to the use of spiritual power in any practice of spiritual healing. One could paraphrase Schweitzer with these words: the role of the spiritual healer is to give hope to the person in need of healing until God actually does the healing, be it instantaneous or over a period of seeming time. That's if a healing is to take place, whether through medical or spiritual practice. Medical physicians do lose patients, and ministries lose parishioners. In both instances, it is up to a higher power to decide who continues to live in the physical dimension, or whose time it is to move on after physical life plane of existence. But nothing in nature is ever lost. It just continues in another energy rate of existence. The same understanding can be applied to all other practices attempting to bring spiritual power into play. Whether it be wealth building, love, power, human fame, or glory, all is an attempt of the imaginary personal egos to influence the energies greater than human power. If one's personal ego seems to succeed, it can further delude itself into thinking it has really done something spiritually to activate spiritual power in his or her own life or in the life of another. This assumption can further add to the egotism of the false personal ego identity. Now, stop in your tracks for a mental moment and hear the mystical reality of the words coming forth from the Christ mind that was in Jesus. Why call me good? It is not I, but the Father, God, that doeth these good works. These are words of reality from a presence to whom many would attribute the greatest healings and miracles. Does any labeled spiritual healer, magician, or caster of spells claim to have greater spiritual power than was claimed for by the Christ in Jesus? If so, appear to me now and I will be silent. If not, it's time for one's own self-styled form of spiritual importance to still itself. Only God's power is real, and in a godly, self-aware universe, it knows what needs to be manifested, by whom and when, and whether on an infinite or finite scale. What then can be done for those wishing to manifest God's will? Grow in awakening in consciousness to God's presence within yourself. The more awakened you become, the more you'll realize that a human being alone and at this present level of awakening cannot control or invoke spiritual power. Again, what you can do of yourself, personal ego identity, to influence spiritual power is nothing. There's an old song whose lyrics go, whatever will be, will be. Add to it the words, for it already is. So, relax and let God's will be done, as it will be anyway. Go with the biblical words, not my will, but thy will be done. If you are a spiritual healer or some form of a spiritual practitioner, go through the motions and do your work. But as you do, constantly remind the recipient and yourself that if improvement comes about, the personal you had nothing to do with it, and that a healing or manifestation came about as a result of the will, grace, and the power of God. Keep in mind, be it yours or recipients, that life is an ongoing process of seemingly different stages, and that in the final analysis, God's will is for the ultimate good of every soul. The worst of the worst is not permanent, but a prelude to the best of the best. All that has been discussed here is included in the words so commonly spoken in metaphysical spirituality. Let go and let God. For until we do not sit at the right hand of God, but are the right hand of God, real spiritual power is God's alone. And in the human mind, meanderings, let all be glad that it is so, and so it is. Dr. Masters. We will be presenting more of Dr. Masters' mystical insights on this station, KUOSFM.com, every week. For more free complimentary lectures and insights, click on to the University of Sedona's website at universityofsedona.com.